hello there, everybody. Welcome to the Sisko Day with Sirach Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and this is the Deep Space Nine art panel featuring our good friends Jenny R. Johnson and J.J. Lendl.
Yay!
Now, the reason I smiled so much when I was saying those names is because these are two of the most amazing artists out there. And by out there, I mean in the world of the internet. Let's start off just with each of you telling us exactly what you do, what type of art you do. Jenny, what kind of art do you do?
Well, Ryan, I am an oil painter. I'm a traditionally trained oil painter, and I make sort of hyper-realistic paintings of fun stuff that I love. So I do scenes and characters from pop culture, specifically Star Trek, because that's kind of my wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Specifically Star Trek, but not limited to.
Exactly.
And what about you, JJ? What kind of art do you do typically?
I also make things that I love, which is a nice way to make a living. Primarily, I do key art and poster art. So a lot of my stuff will be in poster form. I also do book covers, and I work with a lot of properties like Star Trek, but I also do stuff with Star Wars, the X-Files, and a lot of other international franchises like that. But Star Trek is nearest and dearest to my heart by a mile.
Wow, really?
It really is. Don't put that in here, right? We're going to be able to cut that out.
Well, definitely cut that out, being that you're licensed.
Lucasfilm can't hear that.
Wow. All right. And very quickly, Jenny, you are in Nova Scotia. JJ,
Yes.
You are in Cleveland. Can you both tell us, starting with Jenny, where your love from Star Trek or for Star Trek came?
That's my favorite thing to talk about, Ryan. Like many other people, grew up with my dad watching the original series in reruns, Saturday morning. It was on the CBC here in Canada. And I was young enough at that point that it was just really kind of exciting to watch. I knew the characters kind of, but I wasn't super attached to them. And it wasn't until I was, about 11, 12 years old. And I was having a pretty rough time in school. I was getting bullied. Spending a lot of lunches in the cafeteria or and then heading for the library to, eat by myself. And, and in the evenings, I go home, finish my homework, and I was just flipping through the channels and I saw the guy from Reading Rainbow, crawling around in the mud on one channel, and realized, wait a minute, that's that new Star Trek show. Okay. And I kind of finished that episode, and then I was like, that was really good. Like that was, so I eventually, the first full episode that I watched was Skin of Evil, oddly enough. And again, I had no idea really who the characters were. I just was so just taken with them. I was just like, this whole world, this group of people who seemed to care so much about each other. It was just incredible to me. And it was such an escape from, the kind of crappy stuff that was happening in my life at the time. And within a short period of time, I ended up finding another group of kids who were super into Star Trek. And that's, kind of
the
changed.
Cool kids.
Yeah, right? Yeah, exactly. And they introduced me to other awesome, nerdy things. And yeah, that really has sort of really, in a lot of ways, sort of changed the course of my life. And it's, so Star Trek is pretty important to me, definitely.
Were you artistic at that point, when 11, 12, when you first started getting exposed? Were you already doing art?
I was, yeah. I always drew. I was always drawing. I never actually picked up a paintbrush until I went to art school, and that wasn't until gosh, I was almost 20 at that point.
That was the first time you started painting?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I went to
Okay.
art school, and that was sort of my goal, because I knew I wanted to paint. And that was 2002. I started at the art college here.
Now,
So I
everybody at
got
home, real quick, just to know how incredible Jenny got at painting before we show off too much of her Deep Space Nine stuff, check this out real quick, just to get an idea of how talented she is.
no.
Oh, that's my piece right there. That's beautiful. I
Yes.
love that piece. Look at that. Poker games.
Yeah.
So when you said hyper realistic,
Mm-hmm.
that is the perfect way to describe that, because it looks like a picture, like those two pictures right behind you that we're going to get a closer look at in just a second, that aren't actually pictures but are actually paintings that you made. But JJ, can you tell us how you fell in love with Star Trek?
Mm-hmm.
I can. And it was just around the same age as Jenny,
Oh, really?
around 12 years old. And Star Trek was not being shown in syndication in my area at that time. So I knew what Star Trek was, because everybody has heard of Star Trek, or I know a lot of people call it Star Trek back then, because they didn't know what a Trek was. But I actually, the first time I was exposed to it, this was back when they would still send logs in the mail of stuff that you could buy over mail. And so I got this sci-fi catalog randomly one day, and I'm flipping through it, and I liked sci-fi, and they had a whole section for Star Trek. And I saw a whole section for one particular episode of the original series called City on the Edge of Forever. And it looked really fascinating, and they were really talking this episode up. And so I was like, "Meow, this looks cool. I wish I could watch Star Trek," but this was pre much internet or anything like that. So ironically, that very night, I was up late because it was Saturday, and my bedroom growing up was in the attic of our house, and I lived in Pittsburgh. So I had an old black and white TV in the attic with the rabbit ears.
Sounds like
and so
a hot
sometimes I
summer,
could pick
though.
up weird stations from the Ohio Valley. And it was 1 a.m, and I'm messing with this TV, and an image pops up. And it is, as I know now, Dr. McCoy popping up at the beginning of City on the Edge of Forever, in the opening sequence. And so I recognized immediately, because I had seen that catalog that day, and the episode was airing on this weird channel at 1 a.m. in the Ohio Valley. So I watched it all the way through. And I was like, wow, this was amazing. And then an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation came on at 2 a.m. So I watched that. And then an episode of Deep Space Nine came on at 3 a.m. And so I watched that.
That is a cool channel.
It was an NBC affiliate in the Ohio Valley. And it was one of those shows that they would do back in the day, where there was a host, in between the episodes. And he was sitting at a desk with a starship on the desk, and he'd be like, well, that was another episode. It's our Star Trek, every Saturday night from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. we show episodes of Star Trek on our local affiliate channel. And so from that day on, 1 a.m. Saturday going into Sunday was my Star Trek appointment at night. I would just stay up all night on Saturday night and watch Star Trek the only way that I knew how. And one addendum to that, my TV was in black and white. So for a long time, I only saw Star Trek in black and white. And so the first time I saw the original series in color, it blew my mind, because it was all just shades of gray for me. But that's how I discovered the show. And it sort of became this little pilgrimage for myself, staying up late every Saturday night to watch the next episode. Jenny,
that is crazy.
I'm jealous of you, because for me, Trek was it was like a solitude sort of thing, because I'd watch it by myself. And, I never really had friends growing up that were into it. In fact, I remember it was my senior year of high school when Star Trek Nemesis came out. And I was like, I got to see this the day it comes out. And so I was like saying to my friend, like, let's cut school and we'll go to the theater and we'll go see the new Star Trek film. And so he's like, all right, man. And so we cut out and we get to the theater and he's like, you know what? You go ahead. I think I'm going to head back to school. I'm gonna head back to school. Not really my thing, but you enjoy the movie. It's all good. Okay. Great.
What? Kind of.
That guy said he chose school over watching Star Trek.
He was at the theater. He's like, I'm gonna head back in. I'm gonna sneak back into school, and I feel like that's the best choice for me.
I'll take algebra.
You're gonna sneak back so that you can take the algebra test. Okay, sounds good.
My first question is, why did they give us such a shitty time slot at 1 a.m. to 3 a.m.? Like, what the hell is that all about?
I think you know
somebody there, whoever the host was.
I think
he was like just begging for any time. He's like, I want to do this 4-hour Star Trek show.
Yeah.
Wasn't Deep Space
Saturday night from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m.
Weren't they?
Yeah, we were in the 3 a.m. slot. Like
right, the 3. Yeah. Well, I think that doing it in order, and then you'd think that at 4 a.m. they'd show Voyager, right? No, they just showed another Next Generation for some reason.
Really?
Yeah. I think they were like, we've got a lot of Next Generation episodes to show, so we'll double up.
Double up. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll double up. Yes.
Well, tell you what, we've teased it long enough. Let's show a little bit of this artwork that we keep talking about, shall we? Jenny, what do you want to start with? How about that thing that looks like almost an exact picture of Sisko behind you, cheersing us?
Yeah, with the glass. Do you want me to share it on?
Sure, I can also
Is that doable?
I can also show this. Everybody check it out. You can see it in her background, but you can also see it right here. Check this out as well. This is going to show her actually like little fast forward time lapse of her
I've not seen this one.
it. Check that out. And it's what's unbelievable about it is that it truly does look like a picture when you're done with it. It's crazy.
It really does.
It's funny. My technique is not like a lot of artists will do like a bit like an underpainting underneath, and I don't. I don't want to say like I'm impatient. I just want to I want to just do it. So I kind of do like certain areas start to finish, and then move on to the next part start to finish, and then so it's kind of not the most normal process.
Impatient must be a relative term, right?
Yes. That's well said.
Yeah,
yes.
but I mean, it's so great because I'm looking at it behind you, and just like the complexion in the skin tone is so amazing. The
thank
kind
you.
of oil and sheen on his, of his natural skin is there.
Let me actually. Can I share?
Let me give you the ability to do that.
Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah, that's something that's really quite important to me, and that let's see, will this work?
I bet it will.
Oh my gosh, allow. Yes. Oh my gosh. Sorry, pardon me. How do I allow it to share my screen? Actually, Ryan, I sent it to you in an email.
Okay.
If that is easier for you. It's in, I just responded to the email you sent me. I'm sorry.
No problem at all.
Okay.
There it is. I see it.
I thought it might be easier for you. But especially with all because I've been doing portraits now for kind of nonstop for about 5 years. And it's really, really important to me to capture what light does to human skin. And with this piece in particular, it was really important to me to get those colors right. And it was so cool when I really started, really started breaking down what colors I was working with. There's greens, there's purples, there's, you've got those super, super bright highlights and those really, really, really dark shadows. So it's just such a kind of dynamic image. And then with the glass and his one eye being obscured, it's just, I only saw that episode for the first time. I've I watched Deep Space Nine through completely for the first time just before the pandemic. I don't, I'd seen lots.
Really?
Yeah, I'd seen lots of episodes over the years, but I'd never seen it all together, all in one go. And I hit In the Pale Moonlight, and I was just like, ugh. And then this scene, even as I saw it, I said, okay, this is a painting.
This next one is also shockingly good.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
This one was commissioned. This was a commissioned piece by a gentleman in San Francisco. He commissioned it for his wife, who is a Black woman who never watched Star Trek until he introduced her to Deep Space Nine, and she just, the connection she made with Sisko and what he means to her. He and Avery both. And then now she's a huge Star Trek fan, so he surprised her with this at Christmas this year, and it was such a special portrait to get to do. Particularly because of this episode, just getting to do a combination too of I've got the Star Trek end of it. I've got like Sisko in the window, but then Benny Russell and the shirt and the, all of the 1950s stuff around him. It was just really, really wonderful to kind of get to dig into.
Jenny, this is such a beautiful piece.
Thank you.
Yes, I would call this a very ambitious piece too. And I just want to point out a couple of things from an artist perspective.
Thank you.
That are really challenging in this. First off is just painting a reflection is hard enough. But painting a reflection through glass as opposed to a mirror, because you've got to be able to make it clear that there's a reflection happening and that you can see through the window, and having both of those images layered in a way where the eye understands what's happening. And the other thing I'm going to say is, this is not one piece of glass. This is two panels of glass. And what you've done here so effectively is created the top panel an inch or two back.
Right.
So that the reflection is refracted a little further back there, and it all lines up perfectly for the eye. It's so good.
Oh,
brilliant.
Thank you, JJ. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
One thing that's actually just of note in terms of color and how that works and how the eye sees color. There is no part of his shirt that actually has pure white in it. His entire shirt is made up of different colors, or different tints, basically. So there are a couple that come pretty close to being pure white, but overall, almost the entire thing is made up of blues and purples and yellows and greens, and it was challenging to mix all those colors.
Wow.
But I love how the purples in his shirt.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, the shirt. I was going to say the same thing, because I remember seeing him wearing that shirt. And it, that's the fit that it had. It had a loose, baggy fit. Love the way the rims of the glasses, the little gold tip on the rim of the glasses, just little details. It's just so, it's like a still shot of the episode. It feels like I'm watching a moment.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Great detail. Thanks for helping us out with that, JJ, because you are catching stuff that a lot of us aren't. Like it almost looks like there's a white, short sleeve T-shirt under here as well. That, like JJ said, the eye understands what's going on, and I can only imagine how hard that is to convey that. But we just see it, and it makes sense to us. Yeah,
I sort of have to shut down what my brain is telling me I'm looking at. Like you have to sort of break it down into shapes and colors instead of that's an ear, that's that fold. It's just that's a green thing that's about this big, and it blends into this purple thing, and it's it's kind of this other kind of place you have to go mentally, but it's a great place to hang out.
Sure looks like
it. So when you do your art, you're not trying to think of painting a shirt, but you're really looking at things in geometric forms. Is that what you're doing?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. But then also, not just like triangle, square, like it's the geometric forms, but then it's also looking at the two colors and figuring out the third color that is the color that blends them together. It's, yeah. But yeah, exactly. It's just taking just pieces and putting them together. It's just a big puzzle, and it turns into a picture.
Crazy. Shapes, light, and distance.
Yeah.
Everybody at home, if you thought that this panel was awesome, it's going to continue to be awesome, because now we're going to look at some of JJ's works, and it's like completely different art. It's a totally different style, and it's just gorgeous as well. JJ, did you want to share a couple things?
I'll share my screen.
Yeah.
Let me see here. Do I have the ability to do that?
I believe so. Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, let's see what's going on here. Maybe if I do this. There we are. Okay. So I have a bunch of pieces here.
Right.
And I'm going to start with one that I released officially a couple of years ago, which is just for the full show. So this isn't an episode piece. Are you able to see that?
Oh, yeah. Gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
So this
And
is
Quark.
part of a series that I did for all the mainline shows in the franchise. And what I wanted to do with these series of posters was try to include as many characters, not just from the main cast, but from the supporting cast of the shows as I can. And obviously Deep Space Nine, I think more than any other Star Trek show, and maybe any other show on television, has one of the most robust, incredible ensemble casts from the top down. And so this was a really fun piece to compose. So mostly these days I work digitally. And I'm very envious of Jenny, who gets to work traditionally all the time.
That's funny, because I often am quite envious of you also.
Freaky Friday situation.
Yeah, exactly.
So my focus on a lot of my work, just because I end up doing posters and covers, is on composition. As opposed to trying to recreate a moment in an episode, for the most part, I'm trying to convey an idea using pieces of the show or pieces of an episode or characters or iconography. And so for this, it was finding a way to blend all the characters together in a cool composition, but then find ways to make them sort of speak to each other. And so, like, we have the fizz coming out of Quark's drink that's creating the spots on our Trill characters there. And then it's bleeding out into sort of this background where Deep Space Nine is. And then that's going into Odo and just sort of like suggesting the fact that he's, part of the Great Link. And I really love stuff like that, just being able to blend different elements in a single piece. So this is a pretty good example of this. I'm going to jump to another one here.
You really are very good at that, JJ, by the way.
It's beautiful, JJ. It's so amazing, man. As a person who, collected comic books my whole life, when I look at something like that, I'm like, that is top quality. Like I automatically want it on a shirt. I feel like I should have a poster behind me at this moment. It's so amazing.
I appreciate that a lot. And, it's funny because, I did this piece and then I did a commission for somebody else who wanted something very similar. So it's like, all right, I don't want to repeat myself. Let's find another way to do this from a different angle. So this is a piece I did more recently as a private commission, which I decided to do in a lot more of sort of like a poppy style. Very straight lines. Again, it's really focused on a tight composition, but a little bit less loose, I would say, than the other one, and just more minimalist colors. But both posters are doing the same thing, but they're doing them in a very different way to sort of create a different style. So I think it's fun to juxtapose these two. And again, DS9, such wonderful ensemble cast. Like,
absolutely.
everybody's an A plus. So it's always fun to jump into that show and to create those characters. The next one is actually, speaking of comics, this is a comic book cover for a comic that was just debuted. It's not out yet, but this is for IDW's Star Trek mainline series, which stars Captain Sisko with his return post DS9. And this was a fun one to put together. So this is an example of trying to bring in story elements to try to tell a story, but to also use Trek iconography. And so the story of this comic is that Sisko's being put on trial on Cardassia Prime. And so I wanted to find a way to create that moment, but to do it in more of an abstract way. So the B plot is that the Theseus, which is the main ship in this series, is being pursued by rogue Klingons. So I think it's fun way to take two disparate stories and put elements together to create a cohesive image to sort of, in this case, really sell the comic, because the cover image is what's going to get people's attention when it's on the rack. So you want to make sure that it's engaging. So this was fun to put together, and it's very Sisko centric, and they're doing a really cool job with this series. It was actually just nominated for an Eisner Award. Cool. So if you're not reading the series and you're a Star Trek fan, specifically a DS9 fan, check it out, because they're doing really quality work.
Awesome.
JJ, is that Scotty that I see in the background?
Yeah,
it is Scotty. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
To give you an idea of like how much they're working in here. Yeah. So Scotty in this series, he is serving with Sisko, as well as Dr. Crusher and Data, all aboard this starship Theseus. And they're doing
a simple tailor over there. Is that a simple tailor in the background?
You got it. Well, he has to represent Sisko when he's on trial. So
that's a good attorney to have.
Yeah, you got that right. Which is pretty cool. And then you see a couple of other characters there that are original to the comic, which they've introduced. So
so you also chose like a more original series kind of presentation when you did the font and the kind of color selection.
So this is actually, that's a good point there. So the title treatment is the regular title treatment for the comic. So I created the basic artwork. Usually in my artwork, I will create the title treatments myself. But for this one, I just created the artwork. The reason why that's an original series title treatment is that's sort of the mainline Trek title treatment right now, when it comes to the style guide, like it or not. And I'm sort of like, I think it would be interesting to switch that up a little bit for different iterations of the show. But I think right now, CBS, Paramount, Viacom, they're like, let's just stick with the original and go with that. But who knows? That stuff changes all the time. I got more here. If we got time, here's some more traditional pencil work that I did recently. This was
fabulous.
A series of DS9 commissions that I did, and these are mini commissions. These are about 4-inch by 6-inch.
That's great.
And the idea was I did one after the other over the course of a couple of months and tried to make them all connect in some way. So the commission was, I want all the main folks from the DS9 cast. Mm-hmm. So this was a fun thing to put together, a little out of my wheelhouse, since it's more portraiture than sort of cover key art design. But I thought I'd share that because it was fun. And now, does this look familiar?
Oh boy.
Yes.
So Jenny and I, we were clearly drawn to the same moment. This is my episode poster for In the Pale Moonlight, which that's from. And it's interesting because, I love this because your interpretation of it, Jenny, is very different from my interpretation of it. And I love, love, love your interpretation of it.
Likewise.
For my purposes, I went with a much more minimalist take on the moment. And part of what I wanted to do was integrate title treatment, since it's a poster. And so I really like the idea of the glass being either half empty or half full, sort of depending upon your perspective, and being able to split that title between the two and use those
and the black and the white.
black and white there.
Fabulous.
Poster design is so much fun.
Yeah. And
so
you
yeah,
are
it's fun.
So good at it.
Very kind. Seriously. I got some more here. I want to get to some of my some like Sisko focused episodes of the Sisko family. This is for past tense, if you remember this episode.
Wow, old
where
school,
Sisko and a few others end up back in time. And so this is actually a 2-part episode. And, I just sort of wanted to create the idea that he's trapped in this less than, ideal era, which is basically where we live today. So this is part 1. And then to juxtapose this, which is, I use very warm colors. And then here's part 2, which has cool colors and which has Sisko taking command of the situation like he does in the second one. So in this one, he sort of seems like a victim. And in this one, he's sort of inhabiting that role he ends up playing in the episode of the revolutionary.
Really, JJ, appreciate you have a very good understanding of color theory, not just in terms of what colors do with each other, but also what colors mean, what colors make us feel. You use color in such an intelligent way in your work, and as well in a beautiful way. It's just I'm constantly in awe of what you create, because there's so much happening. You've got so many different elements. It's just wonderful.
That's very kind. And I've said this to you before, but it's easy for me working digitally because I can easily juxtapose colors and see what they are. And you are sitting there with your palette. If you watch those videos where, everybody's eyes are on the canvas, next time you watch one of her videos, watch her palette and watch how many changes that palette has to go through over a short period of time. Because I know you're constantly mixing and remixing different shades so that you could do what you're talking about, your 2 shapes and then the color blend to make sure that they all work together. So let's just keep patting each other's backs.
Love it. I feel like I'm getting smarter. We only have about a minute left here, but if you've got another one to show us, JJ.
I want to jump down for Sirach here because I'm going to just jump through. Here's one. Here's one. Here's one.
Yeah.
Shattered Mirror.
Oh wow.
Wow.
That's so
Explorers.
Remember
this one. I went with a real minimalist idea for this one because I like the solar ship.
It's the sails. It's perfect.
Yes. This one here, I'll stop on this one. Nor the Battle.
Oh man.
Come on.
I like the idea of doing a sort of a war novel paperback from like mid-century, because it's sort of like, The Quiet American, this episode where he's having this sort of journalistic journey as a young man, figuring out what a war front is like and how, being a hero, being a writer, being a journalist. And so I wanted to sort of create that sort of mid-century aesthetic. And, you have such a great performance in this episode. I really wanted to focus on you, and especially this scene, you just realizing the humanity or maybe the inhumanity of the situation that you were in. And so I wanted to spotlight this one because I think it's a great episode, and you had a great performance, and it made for a really cool poster.
Wow. Thank you.
Stunning.
Thank you, JJ. Amazing
good
stuff.
stuff.
And that stuff reminds me because our one of our executive producers, Jason Oken, he likes to use title cards from the episodes when he, he phones in on the reviews. And so seeing your stuff is so cool because, this is original stuff. But Ryan, I hope you're going to tell everybody where they can find JJ stuff, Jenny stuff.
Better than that, I'm going to have them tell everybody, even though I probably could, jjlendl.com and jennyrjohnsonart.com. Once again, that is jjlendl.com and jennyrjohnsonart.com. There's an R and an art in there. But everybody, also, you can follow them online. Where can people follow you online as well?
Well, myself, you can find me on Twitter at Jenny R. Johnson, just that. But everywhere else, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Blue Sky, I'm Jenny R. Johnson Art.
And you, JJ?
Cool. I'm JJ Lendl, Lendl, on Twitter and on Instagram. And the only other thing I'll plug is if you like my work, if you want to support my work, if you like behind the scenes stuff like we're talking about here, about how the art is created, you can find me on Patreon as well, patreon.com/JJ Lendl. I have a lot of behind the scenes stuff, exclusive art. Check that out.
Mm-hmm. We at the Seventh Rule are patrons of JJ Lendl, and it is well worth it. Everybody go do it. It's tons of fun. It's like this panel you just saw, but like weekly or something. It's crazy.
If I get around to it, it's weekly. Yes.
You get smarter every time.
Thank you.
Anyway, we have to run, but everybody at home, please enjoy the rest of the Sisko day and make sure you follow and support Jenny and JJ. So thank you all very much. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, JJ. For myself and Sirach, stick around. We got a lot more of the Sisko day. Tell your friends.